everyone to the Clear Tai Chi Mastermind meeting for Friday, March 18th of 2022. And our topic today is positioning for Tai Chi Fighting Applications. And our guide on that will be Michaud. This will be his class at the Clear Tai Chi Family Gathering, International Family Gathering. That gathering will be from June 2nd through 5th here in Maryville, Tennessee, or in Alcoa, Tennessee, because it'll be at the Knoxville Airport Hilton, which is right next door to the airport. You literally walk down through the inside from the airport to the hotel. So you don't have to, and it's a one-stop shop in there for everything. So you won't have to worry about trying to go anywhere else or rent a car or any of that kind of business. Now, if you're going to come and do some sightseeing in the mountains and all that before or after, yep, bring your, then plan to rent a car or whatever you're going to do that. If you're flying, if you're driving, well, you're going to use your own car. The gathering will be, we have a good number of presenters, and we have a international push hands champion who will be teaching a class. We've got an acupuncturist that will be teaching a class that has to do with the Tuina massage aspects for yourself. We've got different kinds of martial classes. We've got a panel for a health discussion about causes and solutions of stress and the way that Tai Chi actually has to do things depending on the kind of stress and what the stress is and what's going to work for you. And there's different ways to do the Tai Chi for stress. And so we'll be doing a panel discussion on that at dinner. There'll be a Friday night banquet dinner. Not Friday night, sorry, Saturday night. And then all kinds of other push hands and great activities. If you have not experienced Tai Chi in more depth and thought you want to do that, this is the event for you. If you're a more seasoned Tai Chi practitioner and want to go where there are more academic and more deeper education about Tai Chi going on, and from folks who really know their craft, this is the event for you. So, and if you're a beginner and just going, I really want to get into the deeper world of Tai Chi, this is the event for you. So it's the Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering, June 2nd through 5th. To sign up, go to the website. That is www.taichigathering.com. That's taichigathering.com. This has been a word from our sponsor. Okay. With us today is Daniel Hill, who is in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome.
That's all right. Thank you for having me here, teaching Clear Tai Chi all over the West Valley.
Welcome. Art Don in the Washington, D.C. area.
Hi, everyone. I'm in Greenbelt, Maryland. That is about 12 miles east of Washington, D.C.
Welcome. Harry Legg in Verona, New Jersey.
Hello there, Sifu. Thank you. The school here is New Jersey Tai Chi, and just a little bit outside of New York City. I also have another instructor here, Paul Shansky, who is in Fair Lawn, New Jersey as well. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks. Philip Chan in Columbus, Georgia.
Hello all.
Welcome. Ty Talbert, who is currently in Colton, California and surrounding areas, the Inland Empire. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, my school's name is Warrior Tai Chi. I teach in Colton and throughout the Inland Empire, right outside of Los Angeles.
Welcome. Sheila Bell in Costa Rica. She's going to tell you which parts.
Hi, everybody. I'm the owner at Balance Ideal Tai Chi in Guanacaste, Costa Rica, which is the Northern Pacific area here in Tropical Paradise.
Welcome. And Jim Kelly coming for you from the Witness Protection Program. That looks like a cruise boat behind him. This is a smoke screen. Out of Boca Raton, Florida.
Yeah, that's really not a screensaver. Yeah, well, from Boca Raton, Florida, generally, but today off the northern coast of Cuba. So technology is great, though. Glad to be able to attend the meeting.
Welcome, welcome. And our arbitrator or moderator for host for the day there, Mark Michaud in Michigan, and he's going to tell you which parts.
Yeah, it's it's Able Tai Chi, and it's for the Midwest Michigan area, covering Grand Rapids and Lansing.
Welcome. And today's topic is positioning for Tai Chi applications. If you would give us like a synopsis of that class, something like layman's terms, or just like what you would normally tell someone that kind of explains simply what you're kind of getting, what this is about, what you're getting into there.
So from my past experience, I've done martial arts for a long time. No matter what style I did, when you get to the application part of any style, it takes years and years and years of experience for people to get to where they can properly execute the techniques under pressure. And a lot of times, the issue, the issue that you can see is positioning. So the idea is we want to use Tai Chi principles, internal principles, to diagnose and correct the problem, which is an advantage that Tai Chi has over most other martial arts, is that when they look at the effect and they try to figure out the cause, because they're looking from the outside, at the outside, they're thinking in a material outside world way, and so they're not getting to a true cause. And so we can go through some examples. For the sake of the training, what I did is I'm going to split it into physical and psychological effects, okay, or causes. And then what we do is we're going to diagnose and correct them using Tai Chi principles.
Okay. Yeah. What is an example that you might be able to talk about there that would explain what you're talking about? What is something commonly that people would see in a fight that would be an issue of some kind, but that's very common, and then the kind of thing you're talking about that it would address that?
Okay. So they get into position to do a straight arm lock takedown.
Okay.
Okay. And then when they go to take them down, they can get them down, but it doesn't work real well, or it's a little funky, or they fail completely.
So they fail completely.
And
can't get the person.
Just fail completely. Can't get it.
Okay.
And so one reason for that might be that they are not relaxing and sinking, and so they're just using arm strength to push instead of using the whole body.
Okay.
That's just one. There could be like 20 different things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. Well, take it away.
Alrighty. The first question I had, and what I'm doing for the seminars, I'll break it up into physical and psychological, and it's probably going to be time-wise. I'm guessing that it's going to be one or two techniques, and I'll have time to probably do one physical cause effect, one psychological cause of effect, and then combine them for those one or two techniques, put them together.
Okay.
And then they can see the before and after effect on whatever the technique is.
Cool.
So the first question I had for you guys is, with that kind of thought in mind and the example I gave, give one example of a physical error that would affect your positioning and explain the cause of the error based on Tai Chi theory. And so let me give you a physical example. Okay. So actually that was a good one. The one I did with the straight arm bar, that's the example for the physical.
Okay.
So why don't we start with Harry?
So that one would be a grapple. Give us one of those that might be for a striking situation.
Me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, physical example would be the opponent engages you, throws a punch, and you eat the punch and fall down and get knocked out.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Seen that happen.
And so what that is, and I got that off the internet. I've watched every video over the last few years on Tai Chi, and I watched all the fights, and a lot of them don't portray Tai Chi very well, but it gives you some good material to work with. And one of the things I noticed is, so they eat the punch, they get knocked out. Okay. And so one physical problem with that is that they are in the wrong starting position at the moment of engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Or they think they're all defended and they're really in a very poor position to defend themselves.
yes. And also Tai Chi is a style that works the best when you're up close.
Yep.
You need to be real. If you're close, you got a lot of stuff you can do. There's a lot of options. And so there's a way that's right out of the form that you've gone over that actually, if you do that, you trick them into coming to you. There's a way that they get to you, and then you just do the move and you got them, you're in, versus having to get to them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what I'm seeing a lot is I'm seeing Tai Chi practitioners who are trying to stand like whatever style they're fighting, if it's MMA or Shotokan karate, they mimic the other guy. So they'll hold their hands. They'll start out holding their hands like a boxer or like a Shotokan guy. And then the brain disconnects because that's not helping them with what it is they need to do. They're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah,
right from the get.
like a Tai Chi person already.
Correct. Yeah, so you're right out of the gate, you're wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harry?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So one of the things that I see most frequently, especially with new students, but even sometimes with ones that have been doing it for a while, is their zhang ding. Their central equilibrium is completely wrecked. So, for example, now I know with this podcast we're doing right now, there are people that are watching it, and then there are people that are only listening. So I'm going to explain both ways. For example, wild horse tosses main. Somebody throws a punch, and in working on the application, the student will step in and they'll be completely off kilter. They'll be unbalanced. Their zhang ding completely incorrect. And they're wondering why it doesn't work. And I go, okay, freeze, don't move. And then I'll have the person that threw the punch or whatnot step out. And I go, now, look at yourself. Feel here. Is that how you're doing it in the form? And then they go, ooh, yeah, no. I said, right. So let's do it again. Keep your act together. Have that zhang ding correct. Have that relaxation correct. It all comes together, and then it's going to work a whole lot better. So that's one of the most common issues that I see.
And that's an excellent one. Some of the videos I saw when the Tai Chi practitioner got frazzled, they would start throwing wild haymakers and almost throw themselves on the ground.
Yikes.
Yeah.
To the extreme.
Yeah. Sheila.
Yeah, I don't have any exciting sort of martial examples, but I have a real life example in myself, which is that I have really big dogs and some of them jump. And so since I've started practicing Tai Chi, I've noticed that I'm much more able to avoid them jumping on me and also tame them, so to speak, without them getting abused or hurt or anything. I'm able to slip to the side and then calm them down, and everybody's happy, So I think it comes down to perception and just being alert, being aware of what's around me all the time. So they never can sneak up on me. And also I'm just lighter on my feet. So I think that's probably around the being spherically centered, not making the double weighted error, so that I'm able to sort of predict how they're going and avoid them. And it's just been really good for everybody, because it used to be kind of a point of contention. Every time I would come to the house, there would be this encounter. And now they hardly even try because they know they're going to fail. So it's been really great to help train my dogs.
So it's play fighting with the dogs or play or loving actions from the dogs, but has to do with physical body and countering to physical body. So I think it's a great example, because that same practice done well enough and long enough, somebody's trying to throw a punch and you do that same kind of maneuvering, it won't be the end of it. Just like with the dog, it's normally not the end of it if it's their first time and you've moved out of the way. They're not done trying to jump on you yet, right? Same thing. But yeah, I think it's a great example. Cool.
Tai?
Tai, you're on mute.
There are two things that I find. One, of course, Harry hit on Zongding is probably the most important one. But the other thing that I'm working on with people who I consider fairly senior is what I call pouring into the move. Their body is not connected and set before they do the move. They kind of pour into it, which constantly puts them off balance.
Yeah. So you're saying that if the person was standing there, this on a grab or a strike or both?
Both.
So let's use what's the simpler one to convey like an example of what you're talking about?
So if they were going to go ahead and do while horse tosses the mane,
Okay.
instead of being set and then doing it, they're pouring their body into the move and pouring their body out of the move. And so they don't have a steady foundation as they do the move.
Yep. Yeah, no, I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Mark, would you do me a favor and just repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Give me one example of a physical error that would affect your positioning in fighting or application use, and explain the cause of the error based on Tai Chi theory.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All righty.
Cool. Yeah.
Dan?
All right. I'd say my favorite example, which I have a lot of fun with one of my newer students who's a big time weightlifter and probably outweighs me by no less than 80 pounds, is moving from your center rather than letting your whole body move rather than just using your arm. And that is useful in pretty much any application, even if he and I are doing something like push hands, or even if he throws a punch and it's so easy that I'm not deflecting or moving his punch, because like you, Mark, I've been involved in martial arts for a long time and sometimes the applications don't always work, but just having my arms in position and moving from my center and my whole body, I don't necessarily need to think about blocking his punch. I just need to move my body the way Tai Chi would have me move it. And the block just kind of happens automatically. And same thing if he ends up coming in with more of a push or trying to push me off balance, it's just holding that position and still moving from my frame, where even him being a bigger and much more muscular guy, he's not able to push me over, and it's kind of easy to slightly move him off balance without even needing to use Ting or find, where he's got his tension. I just need to make the slightest, most subtle movement and he throws himself off balance.
Cool.
Cool, thank you. Art?
I would say I guess fighting or push hands, I can relate it to push hands easily, especially the internal push hands, where one overcompensates to redirect a push or let a push go forward, where you feel an incoming force and turn at least slightly to have the force go into emptiness, but then maybe turn more than you need to or should. And then at that point, you are out of position really to continue a motion to let the person go with the force. So you just take yourself from being in a bad position to, not being able to react well to the incoming force. You just, let's say, overcompensate the letting go or trying to redirect the force to where you put yourself into a bad position, and then it's sort of an even situation again, or you could be even at a disadvantage. I hope that's clear.
So give me a physical example, like what you're talking about.
Well, you're pushing hands with someone, especially as I say, I can relate it to clear internal push hands, and someone is giving you a push that's partly energetic, partly physical, and you just move lightly to get out of the way and let the force go to where the incoming force is not going into you, but sort of past you. But then instead of working from their position where you're centered in a position of strength, you might, if you continue moving more, you can be sort of out of position, your body loses its connection, and you aren't in a good sort of physical connected overall aligned position to respond effectively at that point. You've taken yourself from being in good position to being out of position yourself.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, sacrifice the whole thing for the sake of dodging the one attack.
Right, yeah, just overcompensate to get out of the way. I guess the sort of the term is just move as much as you need to affect the action.
Cool.
Okie doke, Phil.
Phil, you're on mute.
So I'm not sure how this all fits in, but one of the things that I found when I demonstrate or try to teach an application, and it comes up often with horses, wild horses, is that the error is not to be close enough to your training partner, to try to keep too much distance. And what I find is that it really works better if I get as close to the person as I can without getting in each other's way. And I see Daniel nodding, and it's the same thing in dance. You want to be as close to your partner as you can without getting in the way of the partner.
I get you. But there's a really good distance to be at, and then how to learn and use that distance is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. And the mistake is just not to get close enough, and to try to, if you're not used to if you're new to martial arts, you might not be comfortable actually touching. And so there are many techniques that just work better if you do have some contact with different parts of the body. So it's a question of being relaxed and being willing to get close, and to have the understanding that Tai Chi really is a close quarters system, and it works better when you're close than if you're too far away.
Cool.
Daniel gets it.
You were reading my mind.
Thank you, Phil. Jim?
Well, I think from, I guess one of the guys, there's a couple of us on this panel that started off in the harder styles and external styles. I found a lot of the fighting was, more like force on force. And then I believe it was the last gathering, Sifu gave a presentation on just saying yes, the philosophy of Tai Chi, where if somebody, especially a linear fighter, if they want to go straight or they want to go in a particular direction, it's the Tai Chi principle, which is, opposite a lot of our natural reaction, is to say, yes, okay, you want to go that way. I'm going to allow you to go that way. And I'm just going to, circumvent or step around the majority of the force. Like I believe it was Art and maybe Harry had mentioned previously, you just want to not step too far, or you want to remain that, maintain that physical contact, but just be off of that line, and allow them to exert the force, or allow them to believe that they're completing their movement or their punch or their kick, but just to sidestep it enough, or walk around it enough, or redirect it enough so that you are still in control, or so to speak, playing the strings on the puppet.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you were looking for, Mark, or am I off in the right direction?
If you could come up with like a specific, like for example, if you were to look at a student, or if you were to watch like an MMA fight on TV, or maybe think back to an experience during your hard style stuff, the hard karate,
Mhm.
and you look at something that didn't, like, you can look at it and go, something's wrong. And in the past, you would have looked at it and you really wouldn't have been able to figure out what the issue was. But now with your Tai Chi, you can go, oh, that's what that is. For example, if I see two people fighting, an experienced fighter with years and years of like hard karate or boxing experience, they seem to be really good at blocking attacks. An inexperienced person will eat punches a lot. And a lot of times what it is the inexperienced person, their mind intent is small and there's no ting. What they're doing is their mind intent will go to a single point where there's kind of they're tunnel visioning onto the opponent. So they're late catching stuff. They're a step behind and getting punched in the face or whatever. The skilled fighter, even external skilled fighters, have some sense of this idea of mind intent, even though they don't maybe know that terminology. What they will do is they're taught to soft focus on the chest so that they can see the shoulders and the hips move. So if the front shoulder moves, that's a jab. It's an early warning system, kind of like. It's kind of a limited form of mind intent. And so you can diagnose it using the mind intent. You can go, oh, mind intent, that's the issue. Have them expand their mind intent, reach out with ting, and they should be able to pick those off. It should like enhance their effectiveness, like almost like immediately. So
Okay.
maybe
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, a very typical fighting stance, like you said, is somebody coming at you with the fists up and throwing punches, throwing jabs or reverse punches, and just by the typical block, standing on the same X on the ground and blocking whatever is coming to you, just by stepping offline slightly, not only gives you the ability to block better or take most of the force out of the movement, but in a lot of situations, it also allows you to totally bypass the ineffective strike and go right for the counter, or go right for your own strike, because it leaves, when you strike, you inevitably leave a section of your body open. So just by using that simple principle and saying, okay, you want to throw that punch, I'm not going to interfere with that. I'm just going to adjust my position slightly to the left, slightly to the right, turn my hip or blade my body a little bit, and then I'm just going to step in and apply my next movement, or, use your energy, or, what you've expended, and give you right back or more. So, yeah.
Return their energy.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jim. Matt?
Yeah. There's two things I can think of that I've been kind of thinking about, and I haven't heard anybody say. Ty, you sort of touched on it, I think, on one of them, I think, in your answer. But commonly, it's people are standing up too tall and they don't have the experience or the training to like maintain their connections and their ground path that way, and they end up in a double weighted error based on position, and then they just can't kind of bring their stuff to bear. And a lot of times that is something that people are doing like in their form without realizing it, and they're just up way too high. The other thing that people do a lot of times in their form, beginners I'm talking about, in their form, without realizing it, that can really shut down martial effectiveness and like physical application, and the ability to actually do the applications, is they'll cross their center line with one hand but not the other. And so a lot of beginners will do kind of cloud hands, like this windmill in front of them, or there's other moves like the brush knee. A lot of times they'll cross way over and then kind of back the other way, or wild horse, they'll sometimes be over here and then kind of over here. And there's a number of moves in the form where it's very common for beginners to cross their own center line with one hand but not the other. And if you go to do most any martial application from that position, it's going to be very challenging. It really shuts off the energy in surprisingly not just the arm that's committing the error, but in like both arms. It really makes it very hard to engage your physicality from that position. And it's a very simple kind of a physical error that people don't think about a lot, and make fairly often as beginners in Tai Chi, that can really throw off the effectiveness of those applications and the power that you can, put to bear behind them.
I've actually seen what you're talking about in sport karate tournaments. They have a universal guard where they stand sideways to make a smallest target as possible. Mm-hmm. And then the front arm will hang down, but they will put the hand up to cover.
Yep.
So they've got that crossing error where if it was full contact or went to grappling, they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But it's more of a touch. It's more of a touch, so it doesn't necessarily, they wouldn't be aware of the error, or the problem.
Yep.
Right.
Cool.
Sifu?
So a couple things. The first one is that one of the biggest errors that I find that people in Tai Chi make when it comes to fighting, and it's an odd error to me but I have a different perspective, right? That based on the years of doing this, and that is that the people in Tai Chi commonly, when they're threatened or going to be in a fighting situation, even if it's an agreed upon fight, they will stand stationary when the opponent is at 10 feet away from them, 8 feet away from them, right? And and stationary where they really are stuck. They're not ready to move. And if the other person is seriously going to come in on them, even though at 8 to 10 feet, they might not have to move yet. It's somewhere between 6 feet and 3 feet, which is 1 or 2 steps, literally, for the average person who's coming in on you, who's an adult. They're going to have to move and be in motion, especially if the other person is in a bunch of motion. I mean, if you're a stationary target and he's progressing on you with a bunch of speed, it's going to look like, somebody jumped out in front of a car and then got ran over, right? You're going to have to be in, and you don't want to be in motion. A lot of people will wait until they're at that 3 to 6 foot mark and closer to the 3 foot to try to move. And the problem is they're already in motion. So if they're moving in on you at 40 miles an hour, which a human in shorter spaces doesn't have a problem moving towards 40 miles an hour for that short duration of time. Throw a baseball, and you're typically looking at the average person's throwing it slightly over 40 miles an hour. And if they're coming in with a hard, fast punch or kick, same idea. And if it's somebody that's got a pro level, then you're talking about that one punch, that one strike, that one kick. It may be closer to 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. There are people who can throw a baseball and throw it at 100 miles an hour. Well, it's not like the ball magically left their hand at 100 miles an hour and then accelerated, right? It left their hand going somewhere towards the speed that real close to that speed that it gets clocked at. And so if they're coming in, boom, to get you like that, and you're standing there stationary, what happens for most people, and it's very provable, action beats reaction, is that at reach, if he's stationary and I'm already in motion, he's hit before he moves. He's already hit. He doesn't have enough time now to move out of the way, because the other action has already occurred at the distance where they can make contact, and it's thrown. Even at 40 miles an hour, even at 30 miles an hour, it's bang. And you thought you were going to move after they executed the throwing of the punch. It's too late. They've already landed. As soon as they've thrown it, they've landed it in less time than it took me to say it. And so, and Tai Chi, and then there's this idea that Tai Chi would be stationary like that, which is odd to me. That's the part I was talking about to begin with, because the form isn't stationary. It moves. It moves slow. And I get that causes people to think of it as not moving very much. But ideally, for the most part, and by ideally, I mean for most forms, most of the time performed by most people, the form, once it gets into motion, it stays in motion. It might be slow motion because of the way you're practicing or whatever, but it continues to move. And so if you look at two people who are stalking each other that know how to fight, it's not like one of them stands there stationary and the other person is stalking around them and the other person's just standing there. They both have at least a stalking, crawling, moving, positioning action going on, right? And and so there would be this idea of that you're in motion. Now at the point of execution, where you're actually going to do something to them, whatever you're going to land, whatever you're going to throw or grapple or use, ideally you've got base, right? And so you're not trying to move into having a hold of them and move into position. Ideally at the point where you have a hold of them, you are in position, but it's because you were moving to get to that point, to get there. You didn't magically somehow just standing there and now they've handed you their arm and you're in the magic arm breaking position and you get to now move for that from where you are. It's that you were moving, they're moving, and you basically, these two things come together, the timing being the important thing. And the timing involves the motion and the when. You know, when did you move? When and where and how did you move? And so there's specific skill sets. The first one is, and the moving push hands is great for this, is to get used to moving in conjunction with a partner who's doing things and you're keeping a relatively same good distance for you, bad distance for them continually. And then from there, you would begin to work on the timing so that when you go to execute something, you didn't end up either stopping while they're still moving. And so now they've moved away from you and you're hitting air, or they've moved into you and they've overcrowded your position because you lost that good timing that you had in that motion to begin with. And so it's how you move and keep the right kind or get the right kinds of distances with your timing, and then how you execute on that. And then use your foundation, your both your Zongding, like you guys talked about, and your base and your whole body integrity in the motion and the timing in the way so that you can execute properly. And that sounds like, and it is a lot to say. I find that people do have a hard time sometimes grasping it in the beginning, but once you've kind of got practice some drills for that and you get that going on, it becomes, why on earth would you ever do that any other way? Because every other way you get hit, or you're hitting air or something, it just doesn't work very well. Anyways, hopefully that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. Actually, I've seen that in other fighters where they don't move, the other guy moves, and then it usually goes very badly for them.
Oh, yeah.
And then I've experienced it personally where my worst injuries, my worst fight ever was because I wasn't moving. That was probably the main thing, was that. So thank you. That was good.
Cool.
So next question for you guys is to give me one example of a psychological error that would affect positioning and explain the cause of the error based on Tai Chi principles or theories. And so an example of that would be fear of injury, fear of being hit or punched or kicked or thrown down, fear of the consequences of that. And that's the cause of that is actually not being in the moment would be one cause. You're worried about what's going to happen in 2 seconds instead of being right now, here and now. And then another one would be, that's secondary to that, would be improper sung. Is going to be, well, actually, that'd be an effect. So they're not in the moment of the cause. Improper sung is the effect.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's start with Harry.
All righty. Well, so my answer is somewhat related to what you have just spoken about. We need to retrain ourselves from our natural responses when there is an attack coming. One of the things that I like to show new students is what the majority of untrained people will do, and even people with some training, when an attack comes. And if you're watching the podcast, you'll see this. If you're listening, I'll just make a noise. Somebody's coming at you and you go, yeah! And you tense up and you're off kilter again, and you're leaning back and you're going to be swiped off your feet. Versus proper training, someone comes into you and you learn to sink and relax through whatever is happening. So that does not come naturally. That, for most people, that is something that needs to be trained. And it's one of the other things that I'll also use or mention when I begin push hands with people, is even though we're in a very safe environment at the school and in our training, it's still uncomfortable to have somebody come and invade your space. So just the fact of doing our very safe, gentle, clears internal Tai Chi push hands helps you overcome that. And then you step it up another level when people are throwing punches and kicks at you. And can you maintain that relaxation, which is only going to help you keep your posture and everything else that is involved correct. So
cool.
That was excellent. That I used to work with a guy that was a professional basketball player in Europe, and he oftentimes would say, he would quote his coach, and his coach would say, "So shall you practice, so shall you play."
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly it. He's working that all out in training instead of waiting till you get to the conflict or the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was good.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Sheila.
Yeah, I really appreciate Harry's answer there with, the friendly sparring, within our own school. Still, you find your mind going to places where you worry about your performance and you worry about, maintaining all the structures. There's many things that you can think about, but what you really want is for all of that to sink down into your body and for your body to already know what it's supposed to do. And one of the methods that Seafood Clear recommends is when you're finished with your normal shower, turn the tap onto cold and stand in a good Wu Chi. Feel the Zhongding and stand under a cold water shower. And I didn't understand until I started to realize that this is maintaining a good structure under a stressor, right? So if you can train yourself under sort of friendly or controllable situations, such as taking a cold shower or pushing hands with friends, then it turns out that when you're in a situation an unexpected situation with stressors from outside, you're more likely to be able to maintain good structure, which allows you to react calmly and appropriately instead of panicking or feeling, sharp fear. So that's, I'm not sure if that's quite what you were looking for, but that's what came to mind.
That's
To answer this
That's a
question.
great strategy. The cold shower thing, that's excellent. That you can do by yourself, creating that external stressor. That's kind of a self-challenging thing. That's good. Ty?
Your mute's on.
Oh, I have a lot of different ideas about this, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be answering your question. When I have one of the main problems I have with training anything that has to do with self-defense is not only the person who is trying the technique, but the person who is actually the aggressor. And so quite often I have to train my students to throw a good punch. If they don't throw a good punch, if they don't have sort amount of aggression in that punch, even if it's controlled aggression, you don't really get someone you're really getting good training. Or if someone only grabs you in the most weak manner possible because they don't want to hurt you, then the other person is not getting good training. And so I have to have them have a mindset of, yes, show some aggression and go ahead and give your partner good training. The other thing is that that aggression can be ramped up. If I'm dealing with my oldest 84-year-old student, I may start with something very mild and then move it up to their level of comfort. But if somebody will never give her a good grab or something of that nature, she will never get good training. So I spent a lot of time with, and I can't find out the name in Chinese. Maybe you can help me with this, is uke, the actual partner in the training, as opposed, and not just with the person who's trying to learn the technique.
You mean like the ukitori?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what you're talking about is that that kind of that aggressive mindset or energy changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I've seen is I've seen people who are really good in a class setting, like even like karate and jujitsu and whatever. They get into a real setting and they get the crap kicked out of them because they never experienced that thing where somebody had this intense hatred and this rage that would just wash over them and they kind of freeze. Absolutely. So the closer you can, and over time, the closer you can ramp that up to that kind of thing occasionally, just to give people that that experience, that is super helpful. Thank you. Dan?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Give me one example of a psychological error that would affect your positioning and explain the cause of the error based on Tai Chi theory.
I would have to go with incorrectly meeting the aggressor or opponent where they are at. My example for that would be kind of like the example you gave earlier, where some fighters or pretend Tai Chi fighters will mimic the fighter in front of them. It could be due to fear, it could be due to inexperience, but they're trying to play the other person's game rather than, like Sifu Clear taught at the gathering last year, is you can say yes to what they're doing while not necessarily playing their game. Let them play their game, and don't stress yourself out to what they are doing. Let them do what they do, and you can still do what you do. I'm not sure if that answered your question correctly.
Can you elaborate on that line of thinking? Because I like what you're saying. You're going in the right direction.
All right. Someone wants to tackle in at you. They want to play the ground game. They want to take you to the ground. You can let them go to the ground. You can say, yes, you want to go to the ground? I'll let you go to the ground. Doesn't mean I'm going to the ground with you. Doesn't mean I'm playing your game. It just means that I'm not meeting you at your game, but I'm still letting you do what you want, playing on your level. You want to go to the ground? I'll put you onto the ground. I'll let you move to the ground. You want to be at the level of my knee? You can be at the level of my knee and run into my knee if you want. But that doesn't mean I have to wrestle with you. Doesn't mean I have to take your wrestling stance. It does not mean I need to shoot in on you. It's I would say it's a proper reaction to what they're doing while not playing their game.
So
does that make sense?
So psychologically, I'm gonna ask you a little bit more here. So psychologically, what I'll do is I'll give you a different example, and then maybe you can segue off that. So typically, what you'll see with external like brawler type people is, like for example, they push me, I take offense, I push them back, we're pushing each other, we're swinging.
Yep.
Tai Chi, what will be the difference? Would Tai Chi respond that way with that psychological mindset, or what would you? Because you're talking about this kind of around it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You just a little bit.
So for that example, psychologically, if you wanted, you would be letting the other person influence your thoughts, your actions, and your habits if they were to push at you and you were to follow and respond to them by pushing them back or by striking them back. So in that sense, you would psychologically be giving away your power. You'd be giving into their desires rather than whatever your end goal is, which is to escape safely, ideally, hopefully. Does that help answer it? So I'm not, psychologically, you're not allowing the other person to influence you. You're not allowing the aggressor to influence you. You're not allowing your partner to influence you. You are maintaining your own now state, your own goals, your own set motions, your style, while not being influenced by any outside sources.
The psychological problem there, the reason you're having a hard time defining it, it's one I call coherence. And it's that most people in civilized society, they're taught to go along and get along. And so when it comes to the fight, they're still sort of trying to do that. Oh, we're going to throw fists at each other from this distance, and they throw their fists up. So that must be the game we're going to play. And they fall into this compliance to that, as opposed to going, I'm not doing that. And it's considered very antisocial in a certain way to not be in that kind of a compliance. And so that's the issue that they're dealing with psychologically, even though most people wouldn't realize that's a psychological issue, right? And so that if they did, so like a guy shoves me from a Tai Chi standpoint, I kick him in the knee, right? Because most people, they do it and it's shove and shove and shove and shove, and that's what we're doing. But if it's a fighting situation, he shoves me, I come back out of the way, bang, tag his knee, and he's like, oh my God, you hit me in the knee. Yeah, you tried to shove me. Well, that wasn't fair. There's fairness is this coherence idea. And it was like, no, the unfair thing was, you're not supposed to be trying to touch me, and certainly not like that.
Well,
Hey,
thank you,
you're
Sifu.
cheating.
That is my point.
What's that?
Can I pipe in?
Yeah.
So another possibility, and it's also both non-compliance and non-coherence, is if the assailant pushes me, then the way you say yes is, oh, you want me to go that way? And then you just walk out the door.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, a lot of your response to that and your ability to respond to that is circumstantially dependent. You know, if you're kind of in the corner and there's no way to do that, then you're probably going for the kick him in the knee. The door's over here off to the side and they're coming at you and you can just walk through the door. Well, then I'm not going to stand here and let you shove me. I'm going to walk out the door. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And what happens though is people get caught up in this coherence idea. And so they're going to stand there and do the shovey thing back and forth. And they think that somehow they're tied into that. And it's a psychological trick on ourselves of sort, because what's happening is the person can't distinguish social behavior differences from antisocial behavior in that way. And respond and numerous responses to that kind of behavior. They're trying to work on norms, and it's not a norm. You know, ideally it's not a norm to be attacked.
I didn't realize that sort of thing existed, where
What?
you would comply with the other fighter.
That's why so many people do it. Think about it. Most people, if you throw your fists up, what's their first response? If you wanted to go up to, if we went out somewhere in the mall and we went up to people and said, we want to see what you're doing to this, and you threw your fists up, most people, you'll see them start to jack their fists up right away. My normal response to that, my trained one, is I start walking, like out of reach. And I've done that with people that came in to see stuff, and they're like, well, stop. I'm like, no, I'm not stopping. You want me to stop so you can tag me? I'm going to make you work for that. I'm not going to stand there.
Now, I had an incident when I was in boot camp where the guy was brought into the Marine Corps to be on the Olympic boxing team, and he let everybody know about how great of a boxer he was. And for some reason, he didn't particularly like me. So the drill instructors let us go into the bathroom to
Sort it out.
So he went into the boxing stance, and we had these big, heavy steel trash cans.
Yep.
And I took the lid off the trash can and knocked him out.
Yep.
I never thought of complying, putting my hands up to box the guy.
Ooh. Well, and you knew if he's Golden Gloves and you weren't,
Yeah.
then you too, and maybe longer reach, whatever, that this would not be a good exchange.
Yeah, he's at least a good 6 inches taller than me.
Yeah, so trading punches with him is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Compliance.
A good street fighter is aware of coherence. And what they will do is, like, they go chest to chest. And then what they'll do is they go, I'm not going to mess with you or something. And they'll turn like they're going to walk away. And then
Sucker
go,
punch.
what? And knock him out. Because the other guy drops his guard.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's in compliance, yeah.
Yeah.
He or she. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Thank you. Art?
I would say, and I'm sure this was alluded to earlier in this discussion, was the psychological error would be just not being in the moment, not having a sort of not empty, but very open or clear mind to deal with things come up, because it's been mentioned, don't play the other person's game. So you won't have the mindset of, react to him coming in on me or tense up in fear. And again, training has been mentioned a lot, where you're just trained to react to the situation, but not necessarily in what would be termed a pure reactive way, but you're trained to react in a very efficient way without sort of preconceptions of what you're going to do, like that. Just again, and it's certainly an extremely high level of skill with having the ability to be in the moment frequently, or at least in a tense situation. But in that case, you would be ready for what came at you without sort of mental or emotional clutter to slow you down. And again, I know it's been mentioned, but that's what, again, comes to my mind, and what I work towards in being ready to deal with any sort of physical situation, altercation like that.
Cool.
Thanks, Art. Phil?
So I would like to just explore this a little bit further And fortunately, I have not faced real physical violence very much at all. But I do know that if I were to face it, the thing I would be dealing with would be fear and freezing up. And so for me, the error that I would likely make would be not to say yes to everything. And if I could maintain that saying yes to everything, I would be in a much better position. I would relax. I wouldn't be as afraid of being hurt. I would be more likely to fall back on my training. I would be more likely to recoup if I had a misstep or if I got tagged. I'd be much more likely to be able to come back if I maintained that say yes to everything.
Mhm.
So I would say that would be the psychological lesson that I would want to remember and the psychological error I would like to avoid. And then on the other side, in the training side, as either Ty or Harry was mentioning, as the Uki, if I'm the aggressor, I have to learn to say yes to everything too.
Mhm.
And that means to really come on if I'm going to attack, to put energy into an attack so that my training partner has something to respond to.
Question for you.
Yes.
So you said the probable effect would be fear or anxiety if someone was going to attack you. And so, have you had a situation? It doesn't have to be physical. It could be an interview, like you're interviewing for a job, maybe, or maybe
Okay.
public speaking, or in a situation where you had that sense of you had some anxiety or a little bit of fear.
Oh, certainly I've yeah, certainly, yeah.
Okay, what were the physiological symptoms that you recognized in yourself?
So one of the things you have to know, Mark, is I've been retired for like 20 years.
So
So,
you're
so
chilling.
I, I haven't had to do a lecture that I didn't want to, and I haven't had any, and I was in the military, so I never had to interview for it. No, I didn't when I was applying. So, but it's been so long, I don't remember. I can't answer that
Okay,
question.
that's okay. All righty. Thank you. Jim.
Get back off of mute here. Well, I was gonna, so many of the things that have been mentioned already, I tend to run into a little bit because of my line of work. One of the things that the good example martially is, when my objective or my goal is, to place somebody in handcuffs and get them in the back of a car, that's, one end of the spectrum, and obviously their end of the spectrum is, to walk away or get away. There's a whole dance in the middle there that, I find that the Tai Chi philosophy of the double weighted error tends to play into. If the worst thing to do is to try to impose your will on somebody, and it becomes a very physical thing where, if you're able to move back and forth a little bit freely within that, your will and their will, and try to negotiate or to come back and forth, even with the martial end of it, to try to take somebody and put something on their arm or grab them and hold an arm, even, it becomes a little bit too physical rather than, one move one way or getting them slightly off balance, or, taking them down to a knee or taking them down onto the floor and then working it from there. Working with, that, all of that fair ground in the middle instead of insisting on doing something one way. So I would say, like I mentioned, the double weighted error and not being 100% in on any end of a physical confrontation is a good thing. You want to be able to yield a little bit. You don't want to be too soft that you yield too much, and you want to be able to go back and forth in the middle ground.
You want to be soft. You don't want to collapse. The collapse
Correct.
is where the problem will be. Yeah.
So you've probably had a few scuffles, haven't you?
Yeah.
One or two.
Uh-huh. So
He's
so I'm
had
curious
one or
to
two.
see- Yeah. So sometime in your career, have you had an instance where you were anxious or nervous about either the thing that was coming or the thing you weren't sure was coming, where the trouble was getting ready to jump off?
Yeah.
And
it doesn't. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to ask you that in those circumstances, what physiological symptoms did you notice maybe later in yourself when you were nervous or anxious about what was coming?
You know what? And it's funny because I've done a lot of stuff, with guns and knife fights and all of that. My biggest uncomfortable spot has always been fire. I don't like, the whole thing about going into burning buildings or the whole thing about smoke and this causes apprehension for me, and that I think Sifu had mentioned it in the very beginning, this, being in the moment. You have to come to this balance where, I guess, my father had said it earliest that I can remember: when it's your time to go, you're going to go. And if you get out of the moment and you start thinking about what could happen that could go wrong, or if you get into this, this thing about who you're going to leave behind and what, what everybody else is going to feel, then you miss that ability to just function at your best level. And I guess Tai would be another person to speak about, experiences, but I always found that trying to operate in that moment is the best thing. Afterwards, you get the whole adrenaline dump, and you get the knees shake. You sort of stand there, and your body goes through detox as the adrenaline leaves. But in that specific moment, that the focus, the hyper focus, tends to come from when all the training slips into place and all the physical ability and everything. If that's all flowing well, you just go into almost like an autopilot, or everything around you seems to slow down and makes your mission easier.
Jim, one of the incidents you've talked about that I think that would freak me out is dealing with someone naked.
Yeah.
What came to mind when he prefaced that, I just kept thinking, oh, here it comes, that mango tree and the naked guy.
Yeah.
I was going to say the Marines have holes in their latrines, or
Everybody has clothes on that we deal with.
And you ask what the fear is. The fear is of contact.
Yeah. Yeah, you were wise to get the wrists and make your partner deal with the ankles there.
Thanks, Jim.
But all right.
Matt,
Can I just say something?
sure.
So Jim, I think you mentioned just for a moment, you just mentioned the whole idea of this this physical confrontation as being a dance. And I think it's a very, it's a nice image, and it's something that can, it applies to making an arrest. It applies to a problem in the boardroom, and it applies to push hands. It applies to a lot of things. I think it's a nice way of looking at a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, it's interesting because some of the best fighters I've known have been the humblest people, and some of the best CEOs and business owners I've met have also been, very, very humble, not very egotistical. And I think that has a lot to do with different aspects of life. Some of the folks I know that have been married the longest have been the most gracious.
I wanted to underline too what Jim said about training, and that's absolutely true. I had to save a child from choking once, and I was completely on autopilot with my Red Cross training to give him CPR, and afterward, it was the knees shaking, right, and that detox that Ty mentioned. But something that I've noticed on a personal level, I used to be claustrophobic, and since I've deepened my Tai Chi studies, that is no longer the case. So it's a great way, as something that maybe more people can relate to, any kind of issue or phobia you have, you may find lessons by learning good structure and staying in the moment.
You're here.
All righty, Matt, how about you? What do you have for us?
Well, I think this has kind of been touched on in certain ways, but the a psychological hang up or issue that kind of really prevents people from getting the most out of their Tai Chi that I see a lot, especially in beginners, especially in like kind of brand new people in the door before they've really got a feel for things, is that like the benefit of Tai Chi, there's lots of different benefits that people might want to get out of their Tai Chi, but normally when people come in the door for Tai Chi, it's not just because they want that benefit. They want that benefit a certain way, or they want to be able to get it without stepping outside of their comfort zone somehow, or somehow they think Tai Chi is going to be like a shortcut to that benefit. And it could be that there's people that I've met that really started doing Tai Chi because they want it for self-defense and they want to be able to defend themselves, but they don't want to do like traditional martial arts classes or have like hands-on contact or any kind of sparring or anything. And so they want to be able to do this nice, pretty Tai Chi form in their basement every day. And then somehow 20 years later, they'll be able to defend themselves. And that's just not how it works.
They're willing to wait 20 years.
Yeah, if they have to, if it means if the difference between I could fight next year but I'm gonna have to do some rugged stuff, or 20 years and it's just me practicing this form, I'll do that one. And that's still not how it works. And so, and there's a lot of misconceptions like that, including for health practices. There's a lot of people who think that that I've met people who want to do Tai Chi for weight loss because they think it's going to be like an easier kind of exercise than other things they could do. And in many ways it is, but it still taxes you and you will still feel it, especially if you're doing it for those kinds of benefits. And so there's a tendency for people when they're coming in the door is that they don't just want the benefit, they want to get the benefit a certain way. And that they think the Tai Chi is going to get that for them, but it's not really how it works. And so you
mean the way they're thinking about it?
Right. Yeah. The way they're thinking about it isn't quite right. And it doesn't quite match up with the reality of the art and the training. And that can cause all sorts of problems down the road. A lot of people just end up quitting when they find that out, but a lot of people just don't want to face the reality of it. And so they end up shorting their training or doing things incorrectly or skipping steps or somehow doing things that are just not really appropriate for the training, more often than not missing parts of the training. And then they don't actually end up getting the benefit that they really wanted out of it in the first place. And that is, I think, at least for like beginners, that's the first kind of psychological hurdle that I see a lot of people have to kind of get over, is they have to really figure out how it really works. Like, what is the reality of Tai Chi? How does it actually get you that benefit? What is involved in the training? And just get more realistic about it. And then when people do that, and then, you know, they really want the thing, a lot of times they'll pursue it, and they'll end up getting the benefit out of it that they wanted, and so much more. But it is something that can be a roadblock for a lot of people for a long, long time.
Yeah, Tai Chi is sort of like a mirror that's jammed in your face, where you get to see all the warts, your own warts. And you look at the foundation of Tai Chi is about exposing and removing defects. And most people don't want to hear about their defects. You know, they want to hear about what's great about them. And Tai Chi is ruthless in revealing those issues. So for somebody coming in, how would you address that? So what's the cause, I guess? I just kind of said the cause, didn't I? It's like an ego thing. Yeah. Okay. That's
the neat thing. There's a lack of education thing too. Unfortunately, is that there is this public conception that Tai Chi is you do the form and then you get the benefits of it, and it's you wave your hands in the air and somehow magically you get healthy. And there's this real misconception in the public out there, and there's a lack of information about how it works. And so my approach with my students has really just been to talk to them up front early and really try to get a good sense of what their motivations are, and be very honest with them about how Tai Chi can line up with that, and certain things that might surprise them about what I'll have them getting up to in order to get the kind of stuff that they want. And I just try to communicate as much as possible up front and get a very good sense of where people are coming from, what their expectations are, what they may have heard about it, why they walked in the door in the first place. And then, if you can talk to people enough, and you've seen enough of the kind of common misconceptions that people have, and you're aware that that's out there, it's pretty easy normally to figure out where someone's kind of coming from and what you sort of need to tell them to get them on board with what your program is. And then, there's some people who, what they really want is that follow along form class with the pretty movement, and they don't want any of the martial stuff, and they don't want to have any clue how it works. They don't want any other education than that. They maybe want, like a social thing or whatever. And in that case, a lot of times it's just like, well, there's a Tai Chi school that really specializes in that for you, or there's a Tai Chi teacher in the area that really specializes in that, and that's probably going to be your better bet, because that's really not the focus of our school.
Well, ideally with a full-time school, like, you would be able to put in some classes that are catering to that crowd, but also with obviously enough education available, however you're doing that, so that they get that there is a lot more there to be had, so that when they're ready, they can do more.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Sifu?
So one of the sayings in Tai Chi from the masters is don't resist and don't insist. And the don't resist is probably the one where I like, one of my favorite classes to teach really is the just, say yes. Don't say no. They're trying to punch you. And then people mistake the say yes to, he's trying to punch your teeth out. Okay, let him punch your teeth out. No, it's not that level of yes. The level of yes is they're punching from here, coming in this direction. I don't want to impede that direction. And by the way, if they hit my face and we're trying to take my teeth out, then that's impeding that direction. So I want to be where I'm not there with anything, but I gave them nothing that made them stop from moving in that direction that way. They're trying to grab me, same thing. Instead of being like, oh no, and that kind of a thing. It's like, oh, you want to grab this. And then I'm doing it for whatever direction they're trying to go in a way that is surprisingly more often than not to their detriment, if they're, if it's a fighting thing and like that. But anyways, so the one I'm going to talk to you about, because other people have talked about, the one I was just talking about with the resistance, is insistence. Don't resist, don't insist. And insistence, a lot of times the psychological issue there is apprehension about like time, if you will. How long is this going to take? Can I end it now? If I don't end it now, what's going to happen to me? Those kinds of things, right? And since I'm right there in position, if I don't reach them, if I don't get to them, if I'm trying to throw my own punch and I don't land that punch really good, maybe they're going to counter punch me or somehow harm me. And so people will overextend and reach and break the, cause the double weighted error and overextend is the error at that point, in order to land that hit. And ideally, you would always be where you're not making the double weighted error and you are not insisting to the point of to your detriment that if it's right there, then it's right there. And if it's not right there, then you would ideally be doing that right now. By the way, when somebody's trying to insist on me, then the just saying yes becomes really, really easy. If they're reaching and reaching, I'm like, yeah, keep reaching, and it draws them further and further and further into error that then can be capitalized on. Anyways, even for Tai Chi folks, I've noticed a lot of them without really putting some time into the training. If it's bring a punch, they'll bring a punch and then I'll be like, and they'll be like, and I'll purposely just move just enough to where they start overextending, where they're really out of position, out of alignment. And I'm like, you sure you wanted your punch to be all the way out there? Like that. And then they'll look at their position and I'm going, okay, let me rephrase that a little bit. Where's the Tai Chi happening at here? And they're like, oh, there wasn't any Tai Chi in that. Okay, well, let's fix that. Let's get that so that you're not insisting, but that you're in good position for where you would want to be, like that. So
Cool, thank you. Yeah, that was a pretty good discussion, I thought, and helpful when I'm working on my seminar, getting the final points on it. So
cool. All right, so remember that the Tai Chi, Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering is June 2nd. Is it the 3rd to the 5th? 3rd, 4th, and 5th, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, first weekend in June in Knoxville, Tennessee. You will fly. If you're flying, you would fly to the Knoxville airport. And then right next to that airport is the Hilton. There is a Hilton in Knoxville, so make sure you're saying Airport Hilton and book your tickets before the hotel rooms all fill up. Otherwise, you'll get to come still, but you might have to drive 60 miles to get to the Hilton there at the airport in Knoxville. And our Clear Tai Chi International Family Gathering will have Mark here will be teaching on the topic that he just that we talked about for the last hour, and you'll get to see and experience some things with that. We'll also be doing a panel on stress and how Tai Chi addresses stress, because it's not just through the form, it's depending on what's going on and what you need. There are different ways to do the form, and we'll be getting into how you would do that really lends itself to the thing, to dealing with that kind of an issue. There'll also be other martial classes, and all the folks that you're seeing on here, or the vast majority of them, will be teaching an hour-long class at that weekend. It's going to be a fun time. We'll also have push hands and other kinds of fun activities. If you're interested in signing up now, then the place to do that is www.taichigathering.com. That's taichigathering.com. And we hope to see you there. A fun time is going to be had by all. We'll have our banquet on Saturday night. And then we'll have demonstrations and whatnot on Friday night. And we've got some great folks here coming and several guest instructors that have specialties in different things, including an international push hands champion, including a gentleman that a lot of his Tai Chi was learned in New York, Chinatown, including an acupuncturist that will be doing some health stuff, specifically using Tai Chi as the modality to do that. So again, taichigathering.com. We hope to see you there. And
yeah, and do check out the page. Even if you're not sure if you can come or not, you can sign up for our email list and get updates and about the event as the date approaches. You can share the event to Facebook and Twitter right from that page. You can check out the hotels.
And please do that.
And please do.
Please share that.
and you can check out like the hotels in the area and other, other event related stuff all right from there. So check it out, taichigathering.com.
Thanks, everybody. Great discussion today.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you. Good discussion.